Hello everyone, Amanda here with Eclectic Scribbles. I am back to you today with a brand new video. First things first, excuse the nasal sound to my voice, but I am sort of getting over the flu, and I wanted to go ahead and get this video out. So yeah, I sound a little nasal, a little whiny, but we're gonna power through. So as you can probably guess, today's video is all about gelatos and how I use gelatos in my bullet journal. So from time to time, I have gelatos go out in like the monthly sampler kit and things like that, and people have been asking me how to use the gelatos that they've received recently as gifts or as part of the samplers. So I am making a dedicated video just for how I like to use gelatos, and there are only really a couple of ways that I like to use them, but I figured I would show you a few different ways here in this video today. That being said, I'm not really going to use a whole lot of material. I figured I would show you a couple of ways gelatos tend to come packaged. These are the smaller packages that come with 6 pieces, usually 4 gelatos, some kind of brush. I have never used these things, but it's sort of like a stencil brush, and then you've got a little dauber here, or you can get the big 15 packs. There are metallics, iridescents, brights, pastels, and maybe one other. Those are the 4 that I've seen that are in these 15 packs. And then of course you can get them from Faber Castell in like the full set of gelatos. There are a couple of others. There's a watercolor with gelatos pack that comes with the silicone mat that's over here. So there are a few different iterations. I think there's a Bible journaling one that I've seen in Michael's or Hobby Lobby or something that comes with an instruction book and things like that. But that being said, those are how most of them come packaged. Now I've got my handy dandy little basket here, which is where I keep all of mine thrown in, the ones that I'm not using at the moment, and my little box of tools here. These are all the little daubers. This is covered in dust because I never clean my studio. But this was an extra package that I had of these, so you could see what they come in. These are by Color Box, and they are it's called a blending value pack, and it's got 24 daubers and 9 blending pads in it. I rarely use the blending pads, but I do use the daubers. So, and this also comes with a lot of the packages come with these little makeup sponge looking dealies. It usually comes with one harder one and one softer one. I rarely use these. Some of them come with this type of brush in them. So I've got a few of those laying around. Let's say this is like a little palette knife deal, and that came in one of the packages, which you could take to sort of cut off a little bit of the color, which I will show you. So I'm going to leave that out. A couple of them come with little mister bottles, so you've got that. That one I think came in the watercolor thing, and then there's just a wide variety of colors available. I think this stamp came in one of those kits, so all kinds of fun colors. I'm not sure on the exact number. I think it's 60 something, but don't quote me on that because I'm really unsure. I'll have to look that up. And here's this. It's like a triangular sponge tip on the end of a brush. But yeah, like I said, they have the iridescents, which are sort of galaxy themed. They've got brights, they've got pastels, they have got metallics, and all kinds of fun things. So I'm going to use these couple today because these are ones that I'm using for February. I do not have my regular Archer and Olive book out here, which you could see how the pages come out on the outside. So you could tell that blue was sort of my theme for January, and then I'm doing these pinks and purples for the month of February. But just for those of you who don't follow the daily vlog and me on a regular basis, and maybe new to the channel here, the decorative color on the outside of each of these pages is what I am using the gelatos for. That is what I use it for most often. But there are a couple of little things that you could do with them. They're actually really versatile little pigment sticks, and that is what they are. They are pigment sticks that are water soluble, and you can use them in a variety of ways to add color to whatever project you're working on. Now, the reason that I'm not doing this in my Archer and Olive is because a lot of people don't have Archer and Olive or that high GSM. So I figured this Scribbles That Matter Iconic is like the perfect blend in between the 80 GSM quality paper of the Leuchtturm, which holds water a little bit better than any Scribbles That Matter ever can. And the Scribbles That Matter Pro, which is the 100 gram. This is supposedly 100 gram, but I have found that this book does not hold water worth a crap. And I found that with a lot of Iconics, so, or at least the Iconics that I have. But I figured that this was a closer paper type to what most people would have, and therefore I'm going to use this, which I had started using as an art journal, and I will show you that as well. So the color inside of these journal pages is also gelato, so they're also blendable. You could blend them out, and they're going to act differently. This is not gelato. This was ink, and I forgot how to use ink after I had been playing with gelatos for so long, so that's why that's so splotchy. But all of the rest of the color in here is gelato. And so I'm flipping you through. This was this past year when I was doing a little bit of art journaling and trying to get into that every day, and I fell off relatively quickly with the color, and then I fell off with the journaling itself there shortly after. So what I have done is I have opened to the next sort of new spread, and on the left hand side I have left the page as is. On the right hand side, to show you how gelato can move under different sort of situations, I have clear gessoed the paper. Now, for those of you who don't art journal or do any fine art or anything like that, basically gesso comes in clear and white for the most part, and it is a medium that helps you prep your page to hold different mediums. It is sort of the stabilization that holds everything together underneath, and I'm using this by Finnabar, the Art Basics Clear Gesso, because I wanted to still see the dots through it. You can use the white absolutely fine. You just brush it on with a brush, which I've just got this little Martha Stewart brush here, and you can see what this medium sort of looks like. So it's going to come out clear, or come out white, and this will dry clear. So as you can plainly see, this is dry now, and you can still see the dots. It will wrinkle your page, depending upon what you're using gesso on. So there is that. It will make your page a little bit crinkly, so you can hear that in comparison to, you know, this is nice and flexible. This is a little bit more rigid now, but if you were going to use watercolor or something like that anyway, this was going to wrinkle regardless. So that being said, the gelatos, watercolor, everything is going to act a little bit differently on a prepped page than a non-prepped page, and I'm going to show you the different techniques that I'm going to use to decorate these pages, and the different ways that I use the gelatos to on both of these pages equally, and you'll see how the different ones react. So that is going to pretty much be the intro. So the first thing I'm going to show you is what I do most often, and that is how I do the outside of my pages with color. So what I like to have is a spare piece of paper under both sides of the spread that I'm working on, which is what these two white pieces are, to protect anything underneath. For those of you unfamiliar with it and have never seen a gelato before, this is metallic melon, and basically all gelatos look like these little chapsticks, and they are just sticks of pigment inside, and you twist the cap up to push more pigment out, and then you can wind it back down. So yep, just like a chapstick. What I do to decorate the outsides of the pages is I take one of my little daubers. You can have a big one, a small one, or whatever. I like these because they fit on my finger, and I have a lot of control over the amount of color that I put down. I take my dauber and I rub it over the top of the gelato, picking up some of the color. It doesn't have to be a lot, or it could be as much or as little as you want. So the amount just depends on what you're sort of going for. If you're going for something subtle, you want a little less color. You can always test on your spare piece of paper to see what is going to come off, or you could just go in and go straight for it. So that is what I'm going to do. And basically, I put it on my finger and I make little circles all around the outside of the page. I'm not applying any pressure really. I am just letting the dauber itself touch the edge of the paper, and I'm just winding around. So there is really no pressure. And the lighter you go with it, you just have to feel it, get the pigment back on there every so often. The lighter you go with it, the lighter the color will look. And if you want to really get in there, you can give it some more pressure and really sink some color in there. So that is sort of your result from doing this right here. All right, I'm going to do it really, really quickly on the other side of this paper, the one with the gesso. And you can see that the process itself is the same, but the gesso also gives a little bit of grip and a little bit of texture to your paper. So while you're going to get a nice smooth finish over here with this sort of dry on dry application, you are going to get a more textured sort of look over here. So that's going to be the main difference in the gesso versus the non-prepped page. And so if you're going for a smoother look, maybe you should put something like this down with no gesso. This is not something that's really going to ever bleed through a page anyway, because this pigment pretty much just sits on top of the page. It's not something that is going to ever bleed through. It's just sitting there on top, and because it's a dry medium, you don't have to worry about any real ghosting, any shadowing, or anything like that. So to add a little bit more depth, I like to use more than one color. I'm going to go in here with my purple, and I will show you how adding a little bit of purple in here, in addition to the red, just makes that color pop out just a little bit more. Okay, so really quickly, and that took literally seconds, but you can see the little hints of purple all around the outside of the red, whereas this is just a solid color and looks perfectly fine. I think that the adding 2 to 3 colors around the edge just gives it that little bit of extra depth. So that's just a personal choice. You do what you sort of want to do with that. Again, this is not going to blend as smoothly, but the colors will blend together in this manner over here and give it a textured look, which I think adds a little bit of extra character in and of itself to a gessoed page. So you can really see where the brush strokes of the gesso sort of lay down on this page. So it's really actually kind of cool looking to see. I love the smooth version, but I really do not mind the actual color version of this either. And if you want to avoid something like this, you can flatten your page a little bit longer than I did, but I sort of let it dry, and I'm not overly concerned because I'm not going to turn this page into anything about this little bumpy here. All right, so that is the way that I use this in my bullet journal on a near daily basis, or at least weekly, when I go in and decorate the outsides of the pages. That is the most common way that I use it. But like I said, you can also use gelatos as watercolors, and that is what we're going to do in just a second. Okay, so next up we are going to use our gelatos as watercolors, and I'm actually going to move these two out of the way and maybe find a couple that are a little more, well, I threw one across the room, a little bit more mixy. Let's go with a yellow and a blue and see if we can't make a green. So I've got this really limoncello is this bright highlighter type looking one here, and this one is cotton candy. So let's go with these two. Now you can mix this in whatever you want to mix it in. Like I said, I have this silicone mat that came with one that says please tried a watercolor with gelatos. So you can use a little porcelain dish, you can use a palette, you can use whatever you want. So I'm going to try to keep this in frame. And basically, you can go about this one of two ways. If you need a lot of color or a lot of pigment, then that's what this little deal here is for. You just spin this up, whack off the bit of pigment that you want to mix, and go for it. I've got this little hair here on my palette, okay? Or you can go straight in if you just want a little bit of pigment and smear it on the palette itself. So there we have that. I'm going to go in this way because you feel like a 4-year-old when you color on the palette like this. And so there's some yellow and some blue. And we're just going to play on the palette here for a second so you can sort of see how they react with water. Like I said, they are water soluble. Grab a brush here. This is basic number 4 round brush. I've got my dirty water over here because I didn't get clean water. And you can see it just picks right up off. So you just go in, and there you go. It's like a watercolor. That's actually a lot paler than I thought that it would be. Same thing we've got going with our blue over here. And use it as a watercolor. Mixing these with water will dull out the color a little bit, as you could plainly see, but that's what you want. You don't want this, well, you can make it nice and vibrant with several coats, but you want it to be nice and translucent like a watercolor would be. So you want it, or transparent, translucent, transparent. I think they both work, but now I'm going to mix these two colors together down here at the bottom where they sort of mix together. And you can see how they interact with each other. And there we have this neon-y green color now, which is kind of weird looking. So let's see. There you go. So this is another way that you can use gelatos as watercolors. And so I've got this done over here on our non-prepped page. And then I'm going to go and swatch out the same exact way on this page over here so that you can see the comparison between a prepped page and a non-prepped page. The prepped page, the color just picks up and it moves a little bit better because it's been prepped to handle color, handle water, handle whatever medium that you could throw at it. So that's about the only thing that I can tell you as far as the difference in the way that the actual color and pigment is going to react. It just seems to glide on a little bit better. But that being said, it can tend to pull up a little bit as well. So you see how this is a little bit streakier than this? It's just a matter of sort of taste. But I will show you when we flip the pages over how this iconic sort of journal handles the amount of water thrown at it. And you can sort of decide for yourself between all of the pros and cons of this type of journaling situation, you know, where you stand and whether you would want to prep your page or not. So there we have the green. So like I said, the the gelato itself tends to pull and streak up a little bit with this, and it's been forever since I've even tried to use gelato as a watercolor, so I'm pretty much figuring this out as I go myself with you, because I just generally use watercolors. Watercolors will react a little bit different than these pigment sticks are acting on the page itself, but nevertheless, that is the comparison. You've got this and this. So either way, non-prepped page, prepped page. Next thing is really, really simple. You just go in and start to color. It's a little harder to control with the actual pigment stick itself, but you can do it and go in straight with color on your page. The texture of the gesso on this page is going to come out again, where the smoothness of this page is going to be evident with these. There's like a highlighter version of the Gelatos as well, which I think is what this limoncello came out of, which you can use to highlight over text, and it will still be fairly translucent if I am not mistaken. So let's check that out. Let's write hello and see what happens when we go over it with some gelato here in just a second. But with this as well, you could take any of the little blendy stumps and you can sort of work the color out as well. It's not going to be as evident, and it's going to be a little harder to work out and smooth out all the edges, a little bit harder to blend with going straight in like a crayon would, but it is still possible, so that you could blend that out with one of these little blendy stumps. And let's blend this out a little bit. It doesn't move as much over here on the prepped page. Once it's down, it's more down because it is down there in those crevices, but it will move. The beauty of the prep page is going to be that this is very easy to pick up with water and move around should you need to. So you do have that as sort of a pro on this side. I don't remember if it pulls up correctly or as easily over here on the non-prep side, but let's find out. You know me, I like to just go for it. Alright, so again, it is easily pulled out over here. The difference here is that it pulled up a lot more, and over here you can see where it was. The outline is still there. So it's smoother over here to an extent, but it did leave that outline behind. It's less evident with the yellow, being as though the yellow is a lighter color, so it will be harder to see the outline, but I can see it. It is there, whereas it comes up and moves completely with the water over here. And as you can see, that blended out and made the green again. I'm not having as much success over here making that green. It's sort of starting to try to turn green, but I can tell you that this is definitely bleeding through the pages with the amount of water that I have going on here, which is why we have our little sheet behind this one. So this is not as blendy. This will blend out, and you can blend the colors to whatever you need them to. This is a common practice, putting it down dry on top of gesso and then going out and watering it out and mixing the colors that way. You could take a spray bottle, like run solid color along the tops, take a spray bottle, have it vertical, spray on there, and just watch the colors run down the page. That's a really fun effect as well. So that's another thing that you could do with that. Now let's check and see if this is still transparent. It is. So you can still see straight through that. And then you can use this like a highlighter, which that will be true for any of the colors, not just the ones in the, highlighter pack, but that will be true for all of them. And of course, you can blend this out as well as much as you would like, should you choose to do so, because the micron that I used is a permanent ink, so it's not going to go anywhere. On top of gesso, however, the micron is going to behave differently and will bleed, because nothing really sits solid until it's done. You've stopped messing with it. Once you go in with water again, it will continue to bleed a bit until most all of the color is pulled up. That's what the gesso does on the bottom. It allows you extra work time, so to speak. So note that as well. I'm trying to think if there's any other way that's really, really common to use them, or uncommon ways to use them. I mentioned the spray bottle and letting the colors run down the thing. That being said, you can also take a spray bottle, take and whack off some of the gelato, plop your little piece into the spray bottle itself, give it a good shake, and then you have got a colored mist, sort of like a glimmer mist, but without the glimmer. Okay, so apparently I was filming and my camera wasn't. So I'm going to wrap up real quickly what I went over at the very end of this video. We were pretty much done anyway. So I was saying that you could use a chunk of gelato in an empty bottle of water, a clean bottle of water with a spray top on it, and use it as sort of a glimmer mist, something like that. The metallics are really, really pretty. I also swatched out a neutral tone for you on both sides, and then this pink smear right here is watercolor to show you watercolor in contrast to using the gelatos as watercolor. As far as the gelatos are concerned, the possibilities really are endless. My suggestion is always to get in here with a nice fresh page of a spread or something like that in whatever journal you have laying around. Act like a 4-year-old, see what works, see what doesn't. Just get in there and experiment. You really can't go wrong with that. Use your tools. Okay, so let's turn this over. There is barely any bleed through on the gelatos part. This is still drying. So this paper actually held up a little bit better than I remember it holding up, but I did not throw a whole lot of water down on this side of the page. This side of the page is a little bit different because it can handle water because it's been prepped. It is buckled a little bit more, but really no bleed through over here except for under this little hello. And I really threw some water on that. So that tells you how prepping the page sort of helps it hold up against anything that you can throw at it on the other side. So there are pros and cons to prepping your page, and you just have to sort of decide if that's something that you want to do. Pros are the colors move a lot easier, they're blendable, you have longer to work with the colors stay wet a little bit longer over here on the prep side of the page. The cons are you can see the texture. You're not going to get a smooth finish. Sometimes, depending upon the medium that you're using, you are going to get a streaked finish. Your microns are no longer permanent, and things like that. So those are sort of the drawbacks, and just deciding what is right for you and knowing those drawbacks is when you determine to prep your page. Otherwise, over here, the colors are not as blendable on the page. The color is going to sink into the paper faster. The micron is going to be pretty much permanent when you lay it down. So, yeah. Just depends on what you're using it for, and proceed accordingly. But that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Get in there and experiment. If you have any more specific questions about gelatos, let me know down in the comments below, and I will talk to you there. If there is another video that you would like to see on things that I do in my journal that you might want some little how-tos on, let me know that in the comments as well. Otherwise, that is going to wrap up today's video. I want to thank you so much for watching and bearing with my nasally voice as I sort of get over the flu here. I will see you in the next video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that little notification bell so you are informed each and every time I upload new content. Give this a thumbs up if you found it at all helpful. Until next time, happy journaling, everyone. Bye.